Abandoned structures. Dangerous, but incredibly captivating. What fascinates so many people, myself included, about them? If I were to take a wild guess, I would say it's first and foremost the mystery. Why did these buildings get abandoned in the first place? After all, they were built to accommodate people, employees, patients, residents, and now they all stand derelict. Welcome back. I'm glad you're here. This time around, I have decided to tell a similar, but a slightly more uplifting personal story. Now, you're probably sensing the general theme of this channel by now. The name of the game today is Abandoned Buildings, something I have been quite passionate about for as long as I can remember. Now, I have decided to talk about this subject matter because I'm really interested in finding the main underlying reason as to why there is such a wide global community of so-called stalkers who deliberately face the danger of exploring such locations.
I grew up in southwest Moscow in the early 90s, and back then, as I said in my previous video, there were quite a few abandoned buildings, and one of those relics happened to be situated right across the street I used to live in. Just to spoil the whole story right off the bat, it's been since demolished and a new one has been erected on its foundation, just as is the case with many abandoned buildings in my home city.
But back then, it was in its full dilapidated glory. It mesmerized me. As night fell on the city, windows in regular blocks of flats lit up, while the crumbled resort across the street plunged into darkness. Its pitch-black wall openings gave off an eerie air, thus making me even more curious and willing to climb inside. So I did. Not at night, of course, I wasn't that stupid. Soon I became quite familiar with it, and later on I used to go there to hang out and enjoy the not-so-stunning views from the rooftop. Oh, and by the way, this building even featured in a bad movie. A really, really bad one.
As years went by, I explored more derelict locations with some help from my friends. Speaking about friends, earlier on I spoke to my university mate Natalie, who shares my passion for ruins and bygone glory.
When I was young and reckless. Honestly, I was way too scared to open my laptop to seek the exact year when these shenanigans started. But I think, and I can't believe that I'm saying this, it was the time before Instagram. Well, at least before Instagram took over Russia.
Yeah, that's true.
Can you imagine how old you and I are? We are practically dinosaurs. If anybody is asking, I'm going to be a Triceratops. Triceratops? Triceratops. Well, the one with the 3 horns. So let it be 2007.
Probably.
It was crisis, right? There was crisis in Russia back then.
Everyone was talking about it, but I've never seen it.
I've never seen it too. We would try to find it, but I never did. I never tried it in crisis. But we did find abandoned buildings. So let it be 2008. I think we saw it in 2008. Let's admit the most obvious things. It was for free. Because, come on, like 15 years ago, what could you do? You could go to the cinema, you could go to parks, to cafes, but that place was cheap, it was free. You could tip the guard in order to get into the buildings, but some of them weren't even guarded, so it was fine, like go and have fun. And second, it was cool, it was badass. I've never been one of those cool kids, but I could be a badass kid, right? And just think about it. I think in 2008, well, at least here in Russia and Moscow, it was really popular to be a part of a subculture.
Yeah.
Remember, there were goths, emos, skater boy, glamorous girl. You had to be a part of a pack. You had to be somebody. But at the same time, in the abandoned building, anybody could be there. You could be, for example, a rich kid with a fancy camera. You could take incredible photos back there because you would never find any beautiful graffitis in the city, but in the abandoned buildings, they were filled. They were practically like modern life museums, modern art. It was incredible because I think graffiti was sort of banned, at least in Moscow. But in the abandoned building, you could do whatever you wanted. So you could be a photographer, you could be a model, you could be an athlete and jump, like from one floor to the other. It is dangerous, but still, somebody could do that. You could be fascinated by architecture, for example. But because it was incredible, can you imagine, like, there is a glamorous girl and a skater boy, and he comes to her and says, like, let's go to an abandoned buildings. And she's like, but that might be cool. So yes, I'm in. I've got a cool friend, he's a photographer, and voila, they're friends. You should keep things safe, of course, because such buildings are not for kids. But anyway, if you see it from the friendship, from like finding yourself point of view, I think it's incredible. And again, graffitis. I was obsessed with graffitis. And I'm really happy that now government pays to the artists to decorate the city, because right now in Moscow, I can name at least 3 places filled with graffitis, like Art Play, Flacon.
Oh, yeah.
They are incredible. And so graffiti is now like Banksy's everywhere. But again, 15 years ago, there wasn't such an experience. So you could literally have to Google it, find it, locate it somewhere. And such abandoned buildings, they were liberating.
Yeah.
That's a tricky question. From the romantical point of view, I think it's beautiful, because even now, remembering the places that we've been together, I thought like, hey, that would be cool to see them once again. But let's get practical. They take place, which costs money. Plus, sometimes they're not that pretty for the surrounding areas. Like, for example, me, I wouldn't like to look out from the window and see something crappy in front of me, right? So probably no. I think they should be renovated or, completely demolished. However, if such a building has some sort of a historical value, like it was built maybe 100 years ago, and we could learn something from it, the history, the interior, something. I think we should keep it, like the buildings that we keep in the center of the city. But again, if it doesn't look cohesive, I think we should at least try to renovate it. But keep it, I think it's dangerous actually sometimes to keep it. Just from the danger point of view, we should do something at least about it. If we can't do anything, then goodbye, my love, goodbye.
In 2014, Tate Britain hosted a photo exhibition dedicated specifically to derelict buildings. The curator, Brian Dillon, told BBC, "There's always more going on when we look at these structures and places than simply a prurient interest. There's a real mixture of emotions that includes horror, nostalgia, regret, but also a kind of thrill, a sort of sublime excitement. A lot of artists have responded to this, thinking about ruins not only as things to be poured over in a slightly disreputable way, but to see them as filled with a kind of potential."
I feel like I'm selling my soul to the devil. It's a tricky one. It's really a tricky one. But I am a creator myself. I love drawing, I love painting. And to be honest, I never illustrate anything from the point of view that it will be old, it won't be fashionable, or like you are designing a t-shirt. But when it's old, I can just wash my floor with it. I am, as a creator, I never think about such things. I hope they bring laughter, happiness, but I never see them die. Well, at least my brain doesn't work like that. So I guess if I was an architect, I would never even think about envisioning the end of my creation. I would try to make it, there is no end in my brain. I would try to make it as sustainable, as long, happily ever after kind of creation that I can possibly make it. So I don't see death of my geniusness and masterpieces. Again, when we think about the buildings, I don't see any afterlife if it's taking too much space. Like okay, I am very boring and practical. Land costs money.
Yeah, it does.
So when we talk from the city point of view, I can't imagine anything left to the elements. These elements cost a lot. So actually, no, I wouldn't want my building to be just, this is left to the elements, enjoy. No, I guess I would be okay, let's demolish it, clear the path and make something better.
Albert Speer, Adolf Hitler's chief architect, believed in the concept of so-called ruin value. That is, he designed his buildings with the view of what they would look like abandoned. In 1830, John Soane, who designed and built the Bank of England, commissioned an artist by the name of Joseph Gandhi to paint a bird's eye view of the building as a long abandoned structure.
I can't choose one, I have to choose two, because obviously it's the water park, the aqua park. It was the biggest building I've ever been to, and it had the most beautiful, intricate, even sophisticated kind of graffiti I've ever seen. That was the true work of art. So it was my first one, so it had a special place in my heart. And the second one, I like the Plains Cemetery in Hadinka Field, the ones that we mentioned a couple of minutes ago. It was incredible. It was practically small. I believe there were like 20 planes or so. I remember there was a huge military helicopter. So it was just like a little street, a private drive from Harry Potter, but filled with planes. And the only thing you could do, you could just like jump on the wings of the planes. But you could enter the helicopter, but the planes, they were practically small for one pilot, maybe for two pilots. Some of them were even high for you to climb on, but they were so beautiful. The fantasy just went wild there. And I had like one of the most, I don't know, dear photos for me. I think I made them there. So Plains Cemetery and the one only water park.
Exploration of ruins always poses danger. At the same time, this type of activity is much more accessible to a wider audience than extreme sports. You don't actually need any special skills to visit most abandoned sites. However, you do get this ever-necessary rush of adrenaline while crossing the doorstep of a ruined house, picturing all of the Japanese horror films you've seen so far.
Now that we have covered all of the aspects of exploring abandoned buildings that apply to us back in the day, we're now at the moment where we can finally answer the burning question. What is it that fascinates us so much about it? Is it the adrenaline? Is it the desire to be scared? Is it mere curiosity? Or maybe we just want to get out of the house?
Frankly, I believe it's all of the above. If you think of it, where else can we see what it would feel like to live in a world without people? Abandoned structures have the power of uniting people of different backgrounds and subcultures. Also, they are art objects in their own right. So, I would take a wild guess and say that this is exactly what draws people to the ruins of Pompeii and the ghost towns of Chernobyl and Pripyat, despite the obvious danger.
So can you imagine all these different people could be at the same time, in the same place, actually having fun together? You would never imagine them sitting in a cafe, chatting. They would never say hello to each other in the street. But in those kind of situations, they could do the same. And I was lucky enough, I had such teams. Because I've never been a part of a group, I've never been emo or somebody else. I was with them, but I've never been one of them. But again, such kind of experiences, these buildings, they sort of united people from different backgrounds, different cities, different hobbies. It was marvelous. I found it marvelous.
Yeah.
So I guess that was the most fascinating and intriguing part.
Abandoned buildings are just as valuable to the society as those that are currently in use. It's a trip through time. It's a reminder of our inescapably transient nature. This is your own real-life survival horror video game. This is what everything we have created, everything we perceive as new and groundbreaking, will inevitably look like once we're gone. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video has been informative and entertaining enough. If you have your own stories of exploring abandoned locations, do let me know about them in the comment section down below. I'd be more than happy to discuss them with you. As usual, check the links in the description box. If you like videos like these, please consider subscribing to the channel. With this being said, I've been Toshio, pray for peace, and until next time, God bless.